Hey everyone, it's your favorite CEO, Miss Flo, and welcome to another episode of Neon Mike, where the conversation just glows. I'm here at MagFest, and I have a very special guest with me. If you could go ahead and introduce yourself.
I am Hilton George, founder and CEO of Blerdcon, the Black Nerd Convention.
And it is such a pleasure to meet you because I went last summer, the first time going to Blerdcon, and it was an amazing experience. I did wish I had a hotel. Working at the convention, it's a marathon. There were so many cool things to do, and I just wanted the opportunity just to speak with you and just like, how did you come up with BlurCon?
Oh, it was a pretty simple thing. I was a cosplayer who was traveling up and down the East Coast. I was going to big conventions in big cities like New York, Atlanta, here in DC. And I was marveling at how many black people were involved in every aspect of fandom, from creation, game development, art, cosplay, music. And I noticed that the amount or the proportion of our representation in the attendance wasn't matching the proportion of the what do you call it, the guest lists or the programming. And I was like, oh, really are not getting our due representing in these fan spaces. It would be really cool if there was a convention that focused on Black nerd conversations, Black nerd contribution, Black nerd participation in all of these nerd spaces where we are, and maybe not as well connected or as well gelled as we could be. And I went in with no sense of self-preservation to, create a convention using, my co-founder Hassan, and building a team of people who are part of the infrastructure now to bring about a multi-fandom convention that kind of reaches out and superimposes the black experience over the nerd space.
And it's really amazing that you thought of that because growing up, like in high school, even as a teenager, all my friends were weebs, big anime fans.
Right, right,
Is
right,
all
right.
we see is us. Like, we did, as high school students, we did have the opportunity to go visit,
Hmm.
a con. I think it was our first one was Kasukan.
Ah, okay.
So we did notice like there wasn't enough of us there.
Right.
So to like have a safe space for blurs, like what does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, you said it right. It's a two-way street. So on one hand, if we don't feel invited to certain spaces, we don't inject ourselves into those spaces. So a lot of us were attending cons, but wouldn't submit a subject matter discussion as a panel if we felt like, oh, they're not going to accept this because this is too sensitive, or this might seem a discussion too contentious for a non-black space to kind of digest. And so we kind of sat back and we kind of withdrew. But then we had this opportunity, that we created with Blerdcon, where a lot of first-time panelists, a lot of first-time cosplay guests, a lot of first-time musicians and artists got that safe space to get started, and now are doing panels and are guesting at larger non-nerd or non-blurred conventions like MagFest, like KatsuCon, like New York Comic Con. And I think that's really the definition of community. It's not just what happens at Blerdcon that you see, but it is building the ties and the connective tissue that recreates itself and reconnects itself in spaces that are not necessarily designated for us. So when you see the blurred community at Blerdcon, that's great. It's kind of low-hanging fruit. We're all kind of black and we're all kind of chilling, we're all kind of vibing, but how do we connect in the spaces where we're not necessarily in the subject line? And you're seeing more of that at conventions and spaces where we're not designated as the lead, and I think that's a positive thing. And I hope that there's a lot of that that's an effect of Blerdcon, and we want to continue that growth, because I think that's really the sign of success of the con.
Yes, and it's not just about like the attendees. It's you, as you put it, you were also elevating those to actually participate and
Yes.
be in the shows and
Yes.
giving them the confidence that they need to expand like outside of BlurCon.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, how many years have you been doing this now?
Well, this is coming up on year 8. First year for Blerdcon was 2017. Now, everybody had to take a break for COVID. 2020 was a wash. But then we came right back in 2021 and kind of went from there. So we're 8 years old. We're 7 years running. This year coming up will be our 8th run. We're really, really proud. The consistent growth of the convention this past year was amazing. We had an amazing guest list. We had amazing attendees, amazing panels, workshops. The cosplay game at Blerdcon is really, really highly regarded across all conventions. Great musical guests. We just really had a great opportunity to kind of, come back outside. Like you see the hashtag We Outside.
Yeah.
I think that was the We Outside year for Blerdcon, and then we're all going to be back in the spaces. And you'll see growth in conventions like this here at MagFest, where they sold out in advance, which they've never done. I think that's going to be the pattern for this year, 2024, amongst all cons. And we're looking forward to the growth in the Blerdcon space as well.
And what can we expect this summer?
Well, this year's theme is Summer Madness. So we're looking at every turn to try to find thematic things, guests, musical performances, themes for everything from decoration and all that to kind of mirror that summery, warm space. Now, it's kind of by default because we do have a reputation as being a very hot convention because, we get like 10,000 people into a building that was built in like 1975 and the HVAC system does not kick in and it's a problem. But we understand and we have a good time anyway, so why not play with it and have some fun? So we're going to have a little bit of a beach theme going there. We're going to have a little bit of that cookout, barbecue, family reunion vibe going. And as you start to see the guest list play out, the programming start to play out, you'll see more of that taking shape for this summer. We're really, really excited to see how it manifests because it really comes down to the attendees in the community and how well you guys embrace it. Because we can put a theme up all day, every day, but if people don't buy into it and the cosplay doesn't quite follow and the panels and workshops don't really follow the theme, it doesn't go but so far. But I think this year people are really, really excited about it and we're going to have a lot of fun.
Well, that is good to hear. I do advise booking a hotel to the break because, like I said, like working any convention, it is a marathon. There's you have so much going on. I think how many stages did you have last year?
Well, performance stages, we got the main stage in the main ballroom, but then we also have a stage in the arcade atrium where we have DJs and performances and karaoke. We have the outdoor stage, which is at the food truck rally, which is the largest food truck rally of any kind on the Eastern Seaboard, I've checked. That stage has got everything from live performances, poetry, comedy, and the whole nine. So there's 3 main stages, but there's performances happening everywhere. I really want that vibe to happen. I want people to feel people injecting themselves into the con. And that might be a DJ, that might be an instrumentalist, that might be someone doing spoken word. It could be 1,000 different ways in which people are performing and demonstrating their fandom. But we create spaces for that, and those 3 stages are where a lot of that happens.
And I would tell you this: you will not be bored. There's something for everybody at Blerdcon, and it has attracted almost everybody. Like I talked to one woman that's from Canada, came all the way to Canada for Blerdcon, and just appreciated that it was a black space. Like she didn't have to code switch or mask, just breathe and just be her authentic self, which was really comforting to hear. Like, how do you feel
Listen,
about hearing that?
I'm really excited because I went to Toronto as a guest 2 years ago to Anime North, and I met with a lot of black nerds there, and it was a really, really great experience. Some of them had been to Blerdcon before, but there was a lot of them that were going to make that following year, which was this past summer, their first convention for Blerdcon and their first one in the States. So it was really interesting to see them not only experience black nerd space, but American nerd space for the first time. But I got one for you. Every year we have a young lady who comes from the Netherlands, and it's so funny because she doesn't make a big deal out of it. I try to make a big deal out of it, but she doesn't make a big deal out of it, so we don't get to do a whole lot of photo shoots or interviews. But I'm like, wait a minute, you take a trip for the Netherlands every year? And she's like, yeah. And then we got this group that comes from the Bahamas. Right. I was like, wait a minute, I've got like 15 people from a cosplay group that has a mini con in the Bahamas coming to Blerdcon every year. I'm like, bet, like that is how we get reach. I was just in Puerto Rico. I'm going to be going to Puerto Rico Comic Con. I want Puerto Ricans to come. I mean, I really, really feel like there is a universal, great time to be had at Blerdcon. And that's our responsibility. The first responsibility we have beyond the mission is to create a dope convention. If the convention's not dope, the message doesn't matter, the mission doesn't matter, the intention, the themes, none of that matters if the con isn't dope. So we got to have the dopest games, we got to have the dopest cosplayers, we got to have the most fun. People need to feel welcome. People need to feel accepted, feel heard, seen. And as long as that is happening, we're going to have like an amazing time, and that's what we're working toward. So I'm really cool. It's really cool to find out that you actually ran into one of the Toronto crew, because they're our nearest neighbor, and I'm so glad that our visit there made some impact.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it was just great to like to have just to meet new people from all over and almost seem like we're long lost friends. Like that was the vibe at the
Yes.
convention.
I've been told that the Blerdcon vibe, even though it's no longer a theme because we do a different theme every year, people describe it as a family reunion. And, when you talk about superimposing the black experience over the nerd space, there are certain tropes and traditions that speak directly to what I like to call the 23andMe. It's right around here for black people. We don't have to explain it, and that kind of thing. And that family reunion vibe is a very accurate description. You go into a con space and you don't know anybody. In a typical scenario, you might not feel comfortable going around and socializing and meeting new people. But when you see so much of yourself reflected back at you, perhaps for the first time, depending on where you're coming from, you might not have seen more than 15 black cosplayers in a room together. And then come to a place where there's 10,000 can be like, oh my God, like I had no idea how big my tribe was. And you feel that acceptance and you feel that openness, and your inhibitions and your walls and your barriers come down, and you can kind of express yourself. You talk about not having to code switch and not having to adjust your posture or how you move, because you feel like you're safe and you feel like you're at home. That's the mission of the convention. And if we achieve that, the community will take care of everything else. All the stuff you talk about that I put in and the team put in as far as programming and guests and all that, that's all backdrop. The experiences that people have at the convention are made by those people. The music, the food, the programming, the guests are all backdrop for the things that really matter, which is the connections that you make in the space, because that's what you take away. And when people talk about their best experiences at Blerdcon, believe it or not, it don't have nothing to do with anything that I spent money or time on. It's someone they met, something they ate, moments that they experienced, where they took a moment in time, attached it to a really, really strong emotion, and you'll never forget it. And that's what we've been able to recreate or bottle up or whatever you want to call it at Blerdcon every year for 8 years. And here's fingers and toes crossed, we're able to do it for 2024.
And I can't wait. I already booked my hotel because,
You
like I
got a
said,
hotel this year.
yeah. So I'm like, I'm gonna do all 3 days. It'll be my little mini vacation, so I can get some rest in between and make sure that I'm geared up. Now we have like a bit of a connection that we did like discovered. So apparently, you used to work it like within the school system, making
Yes.
sure people got scholarships. You partnered with my high school some years ago, and even worked at my college, Trinity Boston University.
Yes. Yes.
And as we were talking, you were trying to figure out a way to like integrate schools within your convention, especially through the esports organization. Could you like tell us a little bit more about that and your plans for that?
When we talk about underrepresented population, we think of black people and black nerds as a monolith. Really, there's also an age gap here among the black nerd community. Going to cons as a high school student, for instance, is a alien experience for a lot of black nerds. It requires permission. A lot of black parents don't understand nerd spaces. Not sending you off where there's 10,000 people or whatever if I don't know those people where you're going, right? Money. Cons cost a lot of money, more than most budgets of the average high school student. So we partner with several organizations at high schools to bring in on like a field trip basis to come and experience the nerd space. We, at other cons, not just Blerdcon, to come and see the nerd space, get a tour, understand what they are, expose them to it, and they ultimately end up being people who are in college and professionals who come to Blerdcon. Now, for Blerdcon specific, we partner with Bowie State. They have a nerd club there that we also mentor called the New Blerd Order. What's up, Jamal? They have grown that nerd footprint inside the HBCU space to the point where they're actually able to come out. They volunteer with the con. They come with us to some of our other outside conventions to promote, like you see here. And we have a really, really great time, but it's all about exposure, right? So when it comes to esports, a lot of these organizations are already at the high school and college level with varying degrees of officialness. So they may be funded, they may have an official advisor, or they could be a club. But from one school to the next, the size of the group, The funding and the resources of the group can vary. But the important thing to do is to create that pipeline where nerd spaces that are starting to grow in higher ed, secondary ed, are able to create a pipeline so that that next generation of nerds, specifically black nerds for in our case, are able to kind of make that progression so they're not waiting until they're 26 before they go to their first con because it's the first time they live on their own, have their own money, and have connected with the nerd space. We want them to understand that their tribe is there for them and is there ready to welcome and accept them from the earliest stage that we can reach them. Because as you know, as nerds, we didn't always get that sense. Depending on, we don't have any control over where we are. We don't have any control over our schedules. We don't have any control over our money or transportation as young people. So anything that we can do to kind of meet our community where they are, invite them to the nerd space, let them feel welcome, everything will come forward from that. Because you know, you're self-activated. Didn't nobody tell you to start no podcast. You're like, I need to do this,
Yeah.
right? So all you needed was maybe just a little nudge or maybe an open door or even just a crack in the door. And if we can do that, listen, this next generation of Blerds is going to be just fine.
I couldn't say it better myself. And I have taken students to conventions, and when they're in that nerd space, because a lot of times when you are an anime fan or a comic book fan, you know, socially in high school, that could be a bit of a hindrance. But when they find a safe space to geek out and to be with other nerds, and to think about like how more impactful that is if they're like around other nerds that look like them, like makes even a huge difference. Like I even bumped into a couple of my students at Blerdcon, and it was like, Miss Merritt, that you? I was like, yes, it's me, sweetie.
Yeah.
I didn't acknowledge it when they were like near the parties. I was just like, you don't know me, that's right.
I don't see
But
you.
you're right. But it was really, it warmed my heart that they could like enjoy the little tea party that you guys had, or just be in the market and be in cosplay. They actually competed in the cosplay
Yes, yes.
contest, so it was really good to see them involved and like truly be themselves without any hindrance.
Yes,
So
yes.
I thank you for that.
Listen, all the praise and all the thanks goes to the bravery of those people who stepped out of their comfort zone. We cracked the door, we opened the window, we kind of created the path, but it still takes a lot of guts to put yourself on the line and submit a panel or join the cosplay contest or cosplay for the first time or step out. I have some young people who come to the con by themselves because they don't have a crew or maybe their family isn't either willing or able to handle transportation, and we make those kinds of things happen. But it's one of those things where the community, if given the right opportunity, if given the right pathway, will do great things on its own. And it's great because then I get to focus on all the hard stuff, which is the brick and mortar. And I know that the community is going to create the experience for themselves. And as long as we are responsive to and hear and listen to where this community wants to go, and we stay ahead of that and provide what it needs, we're always going to see that next generation. We're going to see our nephews and nieces, and as we get older, our own kids who are going to be coming into these spaces feeling comfortable in ways that we didn't, because the word nerd and nerd culture is evolving. It's not this negative thing, like it was in the 80s and the 90s and even the early 2000s. And now you can wear nerd gear at the mall or in casual ways, and it's like I can really express myself in ways that I wasn't able to do 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And that world is the one that they're inheriting, and it's kind of our responsibility to usher them into it. So it's really great what you're doing, and it's really rewarding for me to see people that, have come through, not just yourself, but I even have other students that, came to school through college scholarships that I wrote and all this, and I'm just like, to see them doing well and see them thriving socially in spaces like this, I side story, one of my students, who when I met him, he dressed like Luigi every day in college. This is a freshman, dressed as Luigi every single day. Got the overalls, the overall,
hat.
everything. Young black man, real quiet and everything. He's here. He's got a game demo. Right, it's crazy. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I was like, and he was looking at me like, what? I was like, oh my God. So I went down, I saw his game. His game is awesome. I got his information, and we're gonna do some stuff with indie gaming at Blerdcon with him and through him. So it's like, wow, this is like an amazing way that the community works.
It's the full circle moment.
It's the full circle moment. You've got students that are here because of you, when they start to achieve things, they're going to look back and say, hey, I'm going to do for someone else what you did for me. And that's how you kind of perpetuate it. And to be able to see that happen in real time is the biggest reward. So yeah, you're right. This has been a really, really great weekend. And this conversation specifically because of our connection and everything is really, really awesome. But that's the kind of magic that happens in the Blerd community. You make these connects like, oh my God, I didn't know you went to this high school. I went to that college. Oh, you used to work here? Me too. That's the way we do it. So if you come to Blerdcon, you're going to come away with more friends and family than you went in with. And that's just gonna happen. So don't come here trying to be shy and try to be like on the wall or whatever, because we're gonna hug you and we're gonna welcome you and we're gonna bring you up out of your shell. So we're looking forward to seeing you.
All right, so can you remind the folks when Blerdcon is taking place and where can they find you on your socials?
Yes. Blerdcon is July 12th through 14th. It's at the Hyatt Regency in Crystal City, now dubbed National Landing. And it's right here in Virginia, right next to Reagan National Airport, so you have an idea of where it is. It's a 3-day, 24-hour multi-fandom convention. We turn the lights on and open the doors at noon Friday, and we don't turn the lights off and close the doors until 4 in the afternoon Sunday. So sleep regulation is going to be on you guys. Basically, what's going to happen is you guys are going to have an opportunity to come out and hang with us. It's only like $80 for a full weekend badge. Get yourself onto the website and definitely click to get your rooms, because we do have room blocks open and everything. The key for you guys, though, is making sure you have fun. That's going to be it. Blerdcon, as spelled Blerdcon. That's Instagram, that's Twitter, now X, that's Facebook, both the group and the page. You can't miss us, and it would be awesome to see you guys in social media, follow our announcements, and be a part of the online community too.
And you also have a Discord, correct?
Yes, and we have a Discord, which you can get to through the website. We also have a QR code if you ever see us out. It's on our flyer. Definitely get in the Discord, because it goes down in the Discord. We definitely speak freely when we're not being monitored, and we're very open and honest. Get some really great information there. So yes, follow us.
All right, and see how you guys glowed from that conversation. Thank you again for speaking with me today, and I can't wait to see you again at Blerdcon. Actually, I'll see you at a couple of conventions, because you worked at conventions.
Yes, you're going to see me at every con. I go and bring Blerdcon. We have our table. We do activations. We have panels at KatsuCon, OtaCon, AwesomeCon. We'll be down at MomoCon in Atlanta, coming to see you. Can't wait. And then, we go everywhere. So pretty much anywhere there's a dope con, especially on the East Coast, Blerdcon's going to be there some kind of way. We love to see the community come together. We have our panels. They usually get packed out. We're so proud to see you guys come out and do that with us. But yes, if you're going to be at a con, keep an eye out for us. We'll be there.
For sure. Okay. I'll see you guys later. See you in the next episode. Bye.